Welcome to the Newsworthy. All the day's news in less than 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. Thank you so much for listening. Today, the executive order to stop family separations, but it hasn't stopped the controversy. Plus, subscriptions for movies and for Facebook, and the longest day of the year. All that and much more in less than 10 minutes. And hang out today after the news for 3 Question Thursday. We are talking about whether the U.S. should really create a new branch of the military called the Space Force.
This is a major undertaking.
I'm Erica Mandy. Today is Thursday, June 21st. You ready? Let's do this. A big update now to that immigration crisis. President Trump has now signed an executive order to keep families together. The president changed course from his earlier plans when he said Congress has to be the one to fix the issue. Remember, there's been public outcry over families being separated at the U.S.-Mexico border. So what's this new order say? Basically, that adults and their children who cross the border illegally should be detained in federal custody together until they're either deported or granted asylum. But President Trump says it doesn't actually change the new zero-tolerance policy itself that his administration started, that they'll still be prosecuting and detaining as many people crossing the border as possible, whether they're with kids or not. So not everyone's happy about this. The new order technically violates a past court settlement that said migrant children can't be detained, period. So there may be a lawsuit over that. Some immigration activists want to see families let go with their children until a set court date, which is often how it worked before. But others say many people weren't showing up for those court hearings, so they'd just be allowed to go free. But wait a minute. What about the 2,300 kids who were already separated from their parents over the last few months? The AP says they might not be reunited right away. Officials have said it'll happen as soon as possible, but there aren't many details, and there's a lot that needs to happen. So this issue is not over yet, and at the same time, some lawmakers are still trying to get a broader immigration bill passed. Disney and Comcast are still going head-to-head in an effort to buy 21st Century Fox, taking turns to offer billions more than the other. This week, Disney raised its original bid by 35% to more than $71 billion. That now tops the latest offer from Comcast, $65 billion. We'll see if Comcast comes back with yet another counter. This is for a movie studio, TV networks, and other assets. Actor Kevin Spacey may be back on the big screen this summer. Remember, he hasn't been seen since accusations of sexual harassment and assault. But now the company behind the movie Billionaire Boys Club says they're leaving his part in. Vertical Entertainment says the scenes were shot 2.5 years ago, so before the accusations, and they don't want one person's behavior to keep everyone else involved from seeing the release of the film. CNN says it's expected in theaters in August. You now have another option to get a movie theater subscription. AMC Theaters just came out with one for $20 a month. Deadline reports it's called AMC Stubs A-List. For the $19.95 a month, you can go to 3 movies a week. Use them or lose them each week for a final total of 12 movies a month. Plus, you get the other benefits of AMC's rewards program. It's in response to MoviePass. MoviePass gives you unlimited movies at the theaters for only $9.95 a month. But the catch is that you have to buy tickets last minute. The new AMC program is available starting June 26th. You might be offered a subscription on Facebook, specifically with Facebook groups. The social site is testing the feature right now. TechCrunch says it means groups can offer exclusive content and perks to basically subgroups of members who sign up and pay. The fee can be anywhere from $4.99 to $29.99 a month. We'll see if it does well enough for Facebook to keep it going and roll it out to more people. Instagram says it now has 1 billion monthly active users, billion with a B. Also, in Instagram's big announcement yesterday, we got the details of IGTV, as in Instagram TV. And let's just say it's going head-to-head with YouTube. IGTV will be allowing videos of up to an hour long, and like YouTube, anyone can upload videos. A key difference, all the videos are vertical and made for mobile. IGTV has its own app you can download, and it'll be rolling out to the Instagram app itself. CNBC says the company is staffing up to check for any controversial content, and for now, there are no ads on IGTV. By the way, I jumped on board and uploaded a video on IGTV, so I'd love to hear what you think. I'm at Erica Mandy News. Today is the first official day of summer and the summer solstice in the northern hemisphere, aka the day that has the most daylight. USA Today says cities like LA, Dallas, and Atlanta will have more than 14 hours of daylight today. Anchorage, Alaska will get 19 hours. And that's it for the main news today, but it's now time for 3 Question Thursday, where I talk with a different expert about a different topic every Thursday. Today, we're talking about the president's plan for a space force, as in another branch of the military, but for activity in space. So I'm talking with Todd Harrison. He's the director of the Aerospace Security Project at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. He is leading in-depth, nonpartisan research about space security and defense funding issues, including the 2018 Space Threat Assessment. So he tells us all about what a Space Force would actually do, who's for and against it and why, and the likely timeline for creating an entirely new branch of the military. Todd Harrison, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
So I want to start with the logistics of this. Can President Trump create a Space Force? And it's my understanding that Congress would actually have to give approval. Can you talk about that?
Right. He can't do this unilaterally. This is not something the executive branch can do. This is a major undertaking. You know, it's only happened one other time in our nation's history that we've created a new military service, and that was back in 1947, where Congress created the Air Force, and they pulled the Air Force out from the Army Air Corps, the Army. This is, something similar that the president's talking about now. It's something that's actually been debated in Congress recently, even last year. It didn't become law, but this is something that the president is going to have to work on with Congress, and it will take some time.
So what are some of the pros and cons that are being discussed at this point?
Some of the reasons that folks have wanted to create a separate service for space are that, they're not satisfied with the way space is currently being handled in the military, that the responsibility and the authorities are fragmented, not just within the Air Force, but across the other military services as well, and some of the intelligence agencies that operate assets in space. That's been part of the frustration. There's also some frustration that the military has not been keeping pace with advances in space technology. You see a lot of commercial companies making leaps ahead and doing things like, SpaceX, reusing rockets. And you see communications companies putting up satellites that have, in some cases, 100 times the data throughput capacity of the military's communication satellites. So people see this as, the military either falling behind or just not keeping pace with technology. The other factor is other countries are making a lot of advances in space, and in particular, countries are making advances in developing and deploying counter space weapons. Russia, of course, has a long history of being an advanced space power. They declined in the 90s and 2000s, but they've started to rebuild their space capabilities, and they are again testing some of their counter space weapons. China is an up-and-coming space power, and we see them developing anti-satellite direct ascent weapons that, a missile basically that can launch up and directly strike a satellite in space. But we also see China developing more advanced jamming systems, systems that can spoof the signals going to and from satellites and make them think that, they're listening to the right signal when really it's not. And China is also developing non-kinetic weapons like high-powered lasers that can blind satellites or even damage structures if they can cause them to overheat. And of course, there's cyber threats. Now, some of the arguments against creating a space force are that it would be disruptive. Space is, important right now in ongoing missions around the world. You don't want to disrupt what's going on. Also, creating a new organization like this would add some overhead to the Pentagon. And, the Pentagon right now is trying to cut back on overhead. When Congress was debating this last summer, the Air Force came out, and the Secretary of the Air Force in particular, Heather Wilson, came out and strongly opposed this, as did the Secretary of Defense, Jim Mattis, and others in the military leadership. But now you hear the folks from the military that had been opposing this before have basically gone silent, and I think that they will probably stay silent now that the president has taken this position.
So with your expertise and the research that you've done, What do you think about this? Do we need a Space Force?
So I think that, we're inevitably going to head in this direction. The question really is, twofold. One is, what's the scope of the Space Force? How much of these organizations does it pull in? Does it carve out from the Air Force and the other services? And does it include things from the intelligence community as well, like the NRO? The other question is one of timing. How quickly do we need to make this transition? Because you don't want to rush it. You want to make sure that it's a smooth and orderly transition. I think it's still years away before it happens.
That was actually my last question is, what do you expect for this timeline?
The president's going to have to, go back to Congress and get them to enact legislation. It's probably too late to do that this year, but it may be something that Congress wants to take up in 2019 in that legislative cycle. If they do, it probably doesn't get enacted until the end of the year, maybe in November or December. And then you've got an implementation period after that that's probably another 2 or 3 years before you can fully stand up a new service like this. So I think, we're probably looking at, something in the range of 3, 4, 5 years before this happens.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Oh, glad to be here.
And you can read more about this topic or any of the news stories we talked about today in today's show notes. Just go to thenewsworthy.com, click episodes, and look for today's date, which is June 21st. If you got value out of this, please be sure to click the share or forward button on your app or email and send it to some of your friends. Let them know they should be listening as well. The Newsworthy is ready for you by 4 a.m. Eastern Time every weekday, so we'll be back with more news tomorrow. Have a great day.